Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm Cal Ewing with investmentpropertyusa.ca, and today I'd like to welcome a special guest. My real estate investing mentor, Mike Wolf, is with us, and he's been investing in real estate both in Canada, in the USA, and internationally for about 24 years, and he's taught me a lot of what I know about real estate, so I'm really excited to have him here to talk about a project that I have mentioned on my website, but I really haven't talked too much about, and that is our Atlanta rental properties. And so I wanted to get Mike in here to talk more about the details because it's his project and I'm just helping him promote it. And I wanted to get a little bit more info for you guys on my website. So hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Cal. Great to be here.
So you're in LA right now.
I am in LA as we speak, enjoying the nice sunshine. But as you know, I pretty much spend my whole life on the road, so this is nothing new. I'm always in a different city every day, moving target.
And it's funny how it always seems to be places that are warmer than Canada.
That is not coincidence.
All right, so yeah, I just want to fill my viewers in a little bit about this Atlanta project that you've got going on. I guess I'll just turn it over to you and you can explain maybe how you got started and what it's all about.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I've been doing real estate investing for a long, long time. And back in the olden days, I only invested in my hometown of Calgary, and that's where I got my start. But over time, I started to learn that it makes sense to seek out better opportunities, not just invest in your own backyard. It's obviously convenient to invest in your own backyard, but there's a lot of downfalls to that. One is obviously we have a big world out there, and if we're only looking at what's in our own city, we're eliminating a whole lot of potential choices. And unless you happen to live in the city that's got the best returns, you might not be doing yourself a favor by sticking to that. So what I've learned over time is that, number one, it makes sense to have the right people on your team, even if I want to manage that property, because one of the things I learned early on is when I'm very soft. So if my tenant says, hey, you know what, Mike, I get paid on Friday, can you hold off a few days? I'm always going to say yes. And although it's nice to be friendly and helpful and want to help your tenants whenever possible, quite often they're testing to see what they can get away with, because they've got a choice of making their car payment, paying you, paying their credit cards. If they don't make their car payment or their credit card payment, that's going to get reported to the credit bureau. If they don't pay you, that doesn't show up. So although they want to make sure they have a place to live, they don't want to lose that, they're always going to try and figure out what they can get away with. And so it starts off with, oh, can you wait till my next paycheck? The next month is, oh, can you hold off a week? Then it becomes 2 weeks. Before you know it, they're a month or two behind. And so what I found is that when I was collecting my own rent, I thought I was saving myself 10% on the property management fees, which is what most property managers charge. I was actually costing myself a lot of money. So when I started to invest in the US a number of years back, I had no choice but to get property managers. And what I found is we could play good cop, bad cop, where the property manager would say to the tenant, you know what, if it was up to me, I'd let it slide. But you know what, the homeowner, he's a grumpy old man. And of course, the tenants didn't know who I was. So they say I'm a grumpy old man. And so now I look like the bad guy. He looks like the good guy because he's the guy who's got to deal with them every day. And now they know that it's not acceptable to be late with rent. Their rent is due on the first of the month. That's when it needs to come in. And so what I found is that I make a lot more money at the end of the month having somebody else collect it for me. So not only does it not take up any of my time, it's also giving me more money in my bank because we're collecting a lot more revenue and we're not having to kick tenants out. We're keeping them on track. So that's a long way of telling you that when I started to invest remotely, I realized that not only can I get a better return on investment, I can actually have a lot more free time and make this a lot more enjoyable. So as you know, I'm a really big fan of creating a lifestyle and creating a certain freedom, and everything I do needs to be congruent with getting me there. So that's a long way of saying think differently. Think of what you want your life to look like in the future. Before you get into real estate investing, before you get too far into it, if you're making mistakes on your first home, you say, oh, well, I've only got one or two, so I'm going to manage it myself. Multiply the amounts of stress that causes by 100. If your goal is to get 100 properties one day or 50 properties one day, multiply whatever stress you've got from collecting off that one by 50 and see what your life is going to look like. So anyway, I kind of went off on a different path, but now I'm going to talk a little bit about Atlanta. So I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I've learned a lot of things along the way because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done some stuff right, and I've done some stuff very, very wrong, and I've learned, and everything that I've learned, I put into every new, as I do new projects, the way the processes and the systems that we put in place evolve into something better each time. So Atlanta is the best project I've ever been involved in, and what I basically do in Atlanta, we go and the teams buy big packages of properties directly from banks. So we'll buy 20, 30, 40 properties at a time. We get every home inspected. We get every home fixed. Everything that shows up in the inspection report gets taken care of by one of 8 different crews we have on the ground that fixes these properties. And then it gets, our property management team will find good tenants and put a good tenant in place and then collect rent. We then sell these homes individually to different investors who want to have a stress-free investing experience. Now, in these big packages of properties, there's some really good ones and there's some really crappy ones. And so with the really crappy ones, luckily there's hedge funds out there that will buy just about anything because they're using other people's money, and it's not their own money. Their goal, they get paid for acquiring property, so they'll buy anything. And so we sell the crappy ones to them. The good ones we sell off to our clients, who often are doctors, lawyers, busy professionals, or people that just don't necessarily want to learn the process, but they want to get their money invested in real estate. They see the advantage of having their money in real estate compared to the stock market, compared to bonds, compared to gold, all these other things. I could do a whole 5-hour episode on why real estate is the best investment out there. We don't have time for that. But the bottom line is a lot of people know that real estate is the way to go, but they don't always know how to do it properly. They don't know how to find the deals, and even if they found them, they don't know how to fix them. They don't know how to manage them. So that's what Atlanta is all about. And one of the things that we do, and once again, as I mentioned, this is an evolution for me. It didn't start off like this when I first did my projects where I helped other investors get properties. What it's evolved into is something where for somebody to move in as a tenant to one of our properties, you have to sign 2 contracts. One is a 3-year lease. So we're not doing 6 months, we're not doing 1 year. You have to sign a 3-year lease. And the second contract that you're signing is a option to purchase that property. So Cal, if you were to buy a property off me today for $100,000, you would have a tenant in that home who wants to buy it. They're signing a contract offering to buy it at a 50% or more premium from what you paid for it typically. So if you paid 100, they've got an option to buy it within 3 years for 150,000. If you're to do the math and figure out over 3 years what how much rent is going to be collected over 36 months, and the 50% premium that you're selling it for, it's going to work out that you're averaging over 20% per year return on investment on this property. That's after your property management expenses. That's after everything. That's after you pay property taxes, insurance, all that stuff. It's designed to give you that kind of return. Now, a lot of these people, our ideal tenant is somebody who used to be a homeowner. They had good credit. We're not looking for people that have always had bad credit. We're looking for people that had good credit. The recession kicked in. Maybe they lost their job and they lost their home, and now they want to start over. And as you can probably guess, nobody who was a homeowner really wants to be a renter. So we have a system in place where we help them to get back into home ownership. They know they're paying a premium, but they're happy because nobody else is going to help them. And their payments won't be much more than rent anyway once they own it. We're helping investors because they want to get properties without having to do work. They also, the biggest enemy of an investor is vacancy and repairs. So when you have somebody who's going to stay in the home for 3 years, you're not constantly repainting and cleaning up after the old tenant. You're not having months where you're missing revenue. So these are all things that we've put into place to basically give our investors the best investment experience possible. We actually put also a 1-year warranty on the home, so there's no expenses in the first year. And as I mentioned, we had the home inspected anyway. Everything was fixed in it. These homes are also newer. They're usually 1990 and newer. So there's very few repairs. But guess what? Your tenant's going to move in. They're there 24/7. They're going to find things the inspector didn't find. And so if they phone and say, hey, you know what, the fridge isn't working quite right, or the dishwasher's broken, well, all our properties look the same inside. We own 1 million fridges, dishwashers, you name it, anything that can go wrong in the home, we own lots of it. Carpet, paint. We have our own warehouse full of stuff because we're doing lots of volume. So it's just easier anyway for us to just go put a new fridge in there instead of calling you. If you're a doctor and I'm calling you in the middle of your busy workday and I'm saying, hey, you got to go find a new fridge for your tenant, you're probably not going to be that happy with that experience. So we just take care of that because our cost is almost nothing on most of the stuff that's going to go wrong. If it was something major, we would have fixed it. It would have shown up in the inspection. Like if it was a roof or the foundation, that would have shown up. It's all these little things that take up a lot of your time. We just deal with it so you don't have to. And our goal is to make all our investors happy, make them lots of money, so they tell their friends, they buy more than one property, and everybody wins. So long answer to a short question, but that's basically Atlanta in a nutshell. I can go in a lot more detail on some of the other things that we put into place to ensure higher returns and all that. And I can also tell you that the longer it takes the tenants to close on the deal, quite often they will not be able to close in 3 years because it's a pretty good chance they won't qualify for a mortgage. We know that. They know that. Our investors know that. So when the 3 years comes and goes, they'll probably ask for an extension. And instead of the rent being, I'm just making up numbers here, instead of the rent being $1,000 a month, we'll say, okay, we'll give you 3 more years, but now it's going to be $1,250 a month. And instead of the purchase price being $150, now it's going to be $180 or $200,000, you know, 3 years from now. And so the longer it takes, the higher your return on investment goes up. And if they never close on it, that's even better yet. We never set them up for failure, but if they don't close on it and they decide to move out, we put somebody else in there. And by the way, each of these tenant buyers is giving a deposit. And that deposit goes to our investors and it's non-refundable. So it never goes back to the tenant. So you can make a pretty good living if people, you know, the longer you hold this property, the better you're off you are. But even if they close in 3 years, you made a fantastic profit. You can take that, maybe you can buy 2 properties now, and we start the process over. So long answer to a short question. So I hope that that helps.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good investment, and it sounds like something that's more like investing in mutual funds where it's all hands off, but you get way bigger returns, and that's I
You
think
get,
what
you get
a lot
way
of people want.
Yeah, you get way bigger returns, and you know with mutual funds it's a lot more speculative, and you don't even want to get me started on that topic. So
But people don't have to do anything when they invest in mutual funds, right?
well,
They
exactly,
invest
that's
their
right.
money and
They
sit
all they have to
back,
do is be
right?
stressed when they have to be stressed when they check on their iPhone what their mutual fund is trading at. But um, with this, the one thing I want to point out is that, and this is huge, make sure whenever you're investing, whether it's me or anybody else, make sure your name is going on title to whatever you're investing in. I see so many people that invest in, you know, there's all these different companies that do presentations. They show this PowerPoint of you lying on a beach and you're going to be investing in these homes or apartment buildings or whatever it is. And what you don't realize, you don't have any ownership in that piece of real estate. You have ownership in their company, and it's very easy to bankrupt a company. Also, you have to read the offered memorandums that they give you in the prospectuses. It tells you in very small print, oh, we take this much for acquisition, and we're taking this much to manage a property. You're going to pay us this much every month to do this and this and this. And there's all these fees, and quite often the people at the top of the food chain who own these companies, they make millions and millions of dollars, and the investors end up losing their money. And I can name 10 companies off the top of my head in the last 3 years that went bankrupt, and all the investors lost their money, and yet the people who started these companies made off like bandits, and they're living very well right now. So be very careful. Make sure you're getting title. You know, Donald Trump, even he bankrupts his casinos in not in Vegas, in Atlantic City all the time. He knows where his next meal is coming from, but a whole lot of people that are invested in his companies, they lose their shirt. Their money's worth, it goes down to zero. So be careful that you're not buying paper. Make sure you're buying real estate. Make sure your name is on it. Anything that I sell, my clients will always have 100% title. I don't retain any interest in the property whatsoever. And the teams that I have, you have a lot of leverage. If you were to go to try and buy a home yourself in Atlanta, and then just hire a property manager, and they know you live remotely, if you live somewhere in Canada like I do, and they know you're not going to come ever check on your properties, there's a lot of room for them to take advantage of you. I see it over and over and over again. If you, on the other hand, you buy something, and my teams are managing it, they manage 500 properties for myself, my clients, my friends. If they were to try something on anybody, they're going to lose all 500. They have a lot to lose. So it keeps them very, very honest. So there's a lot of things that people don't think about when they think, oh, I'll just go try and find something on the MLS, or I'll try to, you know, there's just a lot of things that you don't know what you don't know, and I'm here to teach you that. And whether you, um, if you're a Canadian, I mean, in particular, I work with a lot of Canadians because I am one. There's a lot of value adds as well because I'm going to help you with your taxation questions. I'm going to help you set up different structures to protect your assets from, protect you from liability issues. I'm going to show you how to reduce your taxation. I'm going to show you how to build your portfolio. So when you buy homes with me and through me, I give you mentorship to help you get from wherever you're at right now to taking your real estate business to a much higher level.
Yeah, and I'd like to vouch for that just with my experience investing with you and using your teams and having you as a mentor is, it helped me in Las Vegas getting started when I first started investing in the United States and in Phoenix. I'm focusing a little bit more on the Houston tax deeds at the moment, but the Atlanta project would be no different. And the thing I like about Atlanta is with the strategy you're using with the tenant buyers and the rent to own or the lease option is that to do this strategy on your own, I've looked into it and it requires a lot of work. And especially if you're investing in another country or another province or state, to get that to go on your own, I think would be just a ton of work. And a lot of people just don't have the time and the knowledge
Right.
to set that kind
Yeah.
of deal up, right?
Well, even when you do rent to own in your own neighborhood, it's a lot of work and there's a lot of moving parts to it. And I've got and my teams have a huge amount of experience. And there's a lot of things, once again, that you don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of things that we do in the background. I'll give you an example. For example, my property manager in Atlanta, he obviously goes through the regular checks of a tenant before they move in. He'll check their criminal background. He'll check their financial background. And we're not looking for perfect in financial because we know they wouldn't be renting if they had perfect credit. And we know that a lot of people lost their homes during the recession. But we don't want somebody, if during the boom times they weren't paying their bills, that's a recipe for disaster. So we're throwing those, I mean, we're not even looking at those people. We want people that had really good credit, something happened, their credit went downhill, they want to rebuild. These are people that we want to work with. So that's number one. What he's going to do after he goes through the criminal background check, after he checks their financial stuff, then he's going to show up randomly. He's not going to let them know he's coming. He's going to show up at their front door, knock on it, and say, oh, you know what? I was just in the neighborhood. I just need one more piece of paper signed. He doesn't really need that piece of paper signed. He wants to take a look inside. If they put on their application, they've got no pets, and there's 18 dogs running around the house, well, clearly they're not going to be moving in to your house. So whatever they're doing to that house is what they're going to do to your house. If the weeds are up to his knees, he's not letting them move in. So that's just one of dozens of different things that we do that, once again, I learned over many years of making mistakes. And here's another one. Here's the most costly mistake I ever made in real estate. I had a home in Calgary, and it turned into a grow-op, unbeknownst to me. And by the time I found out, it was around $65,000 to bring that home back up to standards where people could live in it again. And I got lucky that it was only $65,000. Could have been a lot worse. But to make a long story short, now as a result of that mistake, every 90 days, the tenants are signing something that allows us to enter the property every 90 days. And it says that we're going in to change the battery in the smoke detector and the furnace filter. And quite often these people will say, oh, well, we can just do that for you. We tell them that no, our insurance insists that we go in there ourselves. We take a picture to show that we're doing it. And the reason we're doing that, if somebody wants to set up a grow op or do anything illegal in your house, or even have dogs when they're not supposed to have dogs, if they know that we're going to come and check on them 4 times a year, they're not going to move in the first place. It gets rid of the bad tenant before it even starts, and that's the best way to do it. So these are things that you would have no idea if you haven't been through the trenches and made all the screw ups that I have over the years. You wouldn't even think of doing these things, and this is just a few of them. So you have to be really careful when you try to do this stuff yourself. You're going to learn, but it's going to be costly to learn these mistakes. It's better just to do it right the first time.
And that's why I think there's such a benefit to having a mentor, someone like you, because everyone that just watched this video got that tip that maybe they didn't know with their own properties, right? So I think having a mentor, just someone you can go to ask questions to make that learning curve easier is so valuable and important.
Well, it just speeds up the path to making the cash and getting that freedom in your life and get what you want. I mean, we get into real estate not because we have a passion for drywall and windows. It's for what real estate can do for us. And if you do it right, it's going to get you whatever that is, whatever that dream life looks like. It'll eventually get you there. Now, real estate's not get rich quick. You're not going to get there tomorrow, but everything you do should be congruent with getting to your goals. And every time you make a mistake, not only are you potentially losing money, but you're losing opportunity. What could you have done with that money had you still had it in your bank account? You know, if you have to reinvest all your rent into repairs, like that $65,000 hit, even for me that hurt. I was not very happy, I'll tell you that. There's a lot of things I would have much rather done with that $65,000, but unfortunately, once it's gone, and you've missed all the opportunities that money could have brought. So that's why when I make a mistake, I take it very seriously and I do something to counteract that so I don't do it again in the future. And so I know now I've got probably a whole bunch of people scrambling. They want to go check out the rental properties, make sure there's no grow ops in there. But yeah, you do have to be very careful. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and sometimes the people that seem like the best tenants are actually the worst. The reason they're not causing any friction is they don't want you to come back to their property for any reason because they're doing something. It's not always a grow op. There's a number of different. I mean, I had one of my homes where somebody decided they were going to breed dogs in there, and by the time I found out, trust me, it was a lot of work to get rid of the smell in that house. It took a long, long time and a lot of money. So there's a lot of things that could be going on. They don't put this in their applications, I guarantee it. So you have to have some ways to counteract all the things that could go wrong and eliminate them before they ever happen, not be reactive after it happens because it's too late by then.
I think one thing though is you still have to act, even though you know you're going to encounter mistakes or you're going to make mistakes. I think you can't be paralyzed and not do it, right? Like you still have to.
Oh, you got to take action. I mean,
Yeah.
despite all the mistakes, I would not trade all that I've gone through, even the bad. I wouldn't trade it for a 9-to-5 job. I'll tell you that. There's not a chance that I would have preferred to be in a cubicle, even if it was safe and slow and steady. No thanks. You know, and like I said, instead of making your own mistakes, learn from my mistakes. It's a much better plan. It'll save you a lot of money, a lot of headaches. You know, people always ask me if you could go back, what would you do differently? The thing I would do differently, I would have got a mentor much earlier on. When I first started, I got really lucky on my first deal and I did very well with it. It was just by fluke. It wasn't because I was smart or strategic. I just bought a property, boom, I made some money. And my second deal actually went pretty good too. But my third deal, I gave back some of my profits and I made some mistakes. And I learned that, you know, being cocky will get you in a lot of trouble. And trying to figure it out on your own will get you in a lot of trouble. And so these days I have a lot of mentors in a lot of different topics on, you know, things like marketing and health. And these days I'm really big on having coaches and people to help me. I don't want to learn all this stuff from scratch. I don't want to start from the beginning and make the screw ups. I just want to do it right the first time. And you know, education is a lot cheaper than mistakes. I've learned that. So.
All right. Well, we could go on forever. I could probably do 6 hours of interviewing with you, Mike, on all these topics, but I guess we'll wrap it up. Really quickly, I just want to ask, can you name maybe 3 to 5 reasons why Atlanta, as far as the market or the economy or the city itself?
Yeah, well, here I'll tell you what my process is. As you can imagine, the cost for me to go to a U.S. city and start building teams, it's time consuming, it's expensive. You know, I don't randomly just go to a city and say, yeah, we'll set up a team here. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. So the first thing I look at before I even look at the real estate is I want to know, is the market landlord friendly or is it tenant friendly? So I'm going to use, since I'm in California right now, I'm going to use California as an example. If you get a bad tenant in California who's trashing your home, not paying any rent, if they know how to work the system, they're going to live in your home for the better part of a year, and you're not going to see a dime of revenue while you watch the value of your investment going down. So it's very, very tenant friendly here. Now, if you contrast that with Atlanta, if we get a bad tenant in one of our properties, they're typically gone in 3 to 4 weeks. And that's even if they know the system. A matter of fact, because we have a lot of volume there, my property manager, when he does on the rare occasions have to go to court to get rid of somebody, the judges know him. And so quite often tenants will lie, and they'll sometimes say, oh, well, I didn't pay rent because there's this problem with the property. And anybody who knows me knows that I take extra good care of my properties. This is my investment. This is all I do for a living. This is my retirement. Everything I do relies on my real estate. So I take extra good care of my properties. I take extra good care of my tenants. But if they don't have money, quite often they're going to come up with an excuse because they don't want to be on the streets, and they usually don't have somewhere else to go. So they'll quite often go into court and say, oh, well, I didn't pay because there's this problem, and they'll wreck something and take a picture of it. And you know, if in some places, if it's California, the judge would probably let them stay there forever. In Atlanta, what happens is the judge says, well, I tell you what, if you don't think the home is a good place to live because of this, then here's your option. You can either pay rent and stay, or you can move out, no harm, no foul. These are your choices. You got 2 weeks, decide. And if you're still there in 2 weeks and you haven't paid, the sheriff's going to come remove you. So when you have that sort of environment, that's going to help your bottom line considerably over the opposite. And when I look at some Canadian cities, I look at Ontario and Quebec, Manitoba with rent controls. I don't like the government meddling in to business. Whenever they mess with business, they screw things up. So I want to go to places where the government is not, they're not involved. So uh, Georgia is a place where they encourage business. So this brings up my second point. One of the things that they do is, they're very smart. They realize, hey, if we can bring big businesses here, and it's going to attract a lot of people. Now we'll give the businesses a tax break, and in return, they're going to hire a whole bunch of people. We'll tax the death out of the employees. So, so what that means is that it's a very diversified economy because a lot of different companies want to have their head offices there. So it's a head office for Coca-Cola, Turner Broadcasting, which owns CNN, Delta Airlines, Home Depot. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And the important thing to look at is if I said, oh, well, it's the number one place for the auto industry, such as Detroit. Well, if you have only one industry, that industry, well, we see what's going on in Detroit. It's a nightmare. And that's because there's one industry. When that industry is not competitive, the auto industry will never be competitive in the United States. The unions are too powerful, the employees make too much money, and they just can't make a product for the same price point as they can overseas. So that city is going to have to reinvent itself. So if you own real estate there, there's nothing causing appreciation. Nobody's moving there. People can't afford to pay rent, and so they're damaging properties. They're vandalizing to make a living. They're stealing copper and toilets and whatever they can get out of your property, they're stealing it. So you contrast that with a place where there's lots of employment. People are, if Coca-Cola closed its doors tomorrow, which I strongly doubt, people could go work at Delta, or they could go work at the airport, which incidentally is the busiest by traffic. It's the busiest airport in the world, the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. So there's tons and tons of jobs. People have lots of work. Uh, it's just a vibrant city. For anybody who hasn't been there, it's just a vibrant city with a lot of culture. First time I went there, I had no idea. And people are out there and they're going to the nice restaurants and they're spending money and the economy is good. The cost of living is very low though, which is perfect for us. And it's a great place, which brings up my third point. So we talked, firstly, is it landlord friendly? Secondly, are there jobs or people moving there? And let me add to that, the baby boomers are not heading north, they're heading south. They're all looking for warmer places, which is why I'm not quite retiree yet, but I don't like the cold. A lot of people are heading south. There's not a lot of people moving north. So that's a hint that maybe we should be buying our real estate in the Sun Belt. And so these are things you want to take into consideration. And then the third thing you want to look at is what is the ratio of purchase price to rent. And I want to get as cheap a property as possible with as much rent as possible, but I want real returns. I don't want paper returns. So I could show you homes in Detroit. You can buy them for $1, literally, but they're liabilities because there's nobody who's going to rent them. They're in neighborhoods that are just totally destroyed. And on paper, I could show you, oh, well, it used to rent for $700 a month. You get it for $1. Well, you get your money back pretty darn quick if you could ever rent it. But in the meantime, you got to pay for utilities, you got to pay for property taxes, and somebody's going to go in and vandalize your home. As soon as you fix it up, people are going to steal everything in there. So what is a real return on investment? Not the one that the promoter is trying to get you to believe is true. So you got to kind of, once again, this comes from experience. It's something if you were a newbie, you wouldn't immediately figure this out. You'd think, oh, well, property for $1, what's the worst thing that could happen? You're buying yourself a liability. There's a lot of bad things that could happen. It's all about buying in markets where you're getting a good return on your investment, and that comes from buying as low as possible but still in a good neighborhood and getting as much money in rent. And so Atlanta, in my mind, is the perfect city for that. I don't know of any other city where the returns are better than that right now, which is why I took the time to go build my teams there. So now I can pass this knowledge and this opportunity on to the people watching this video.
That's great. Well, to me, it sounds like a really good strategy that you're doing down there. That's bringing those rents up even more with the rent to own strategy there. And I really wanted to get you in here to talk a little bit more about it because I've got some properties featured on my website. Those ones on there aren't for sale right now, but they're the exact kind of properties that you guys are selling to investors.
Yeah, exactly. Those are really representative. All our properties, after all, look the same. The insides, same carpet, same paint, same faucet, same appliances. Everything looks the same, and they're all designed. Real estate is just a method to give you a return on your investment. That's all it is. And all these properties are designed to give very, very similar returns. They all look the same. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what it looks like as long as we can keep it rented and do our job on our side. That money's going to keep coming in. it's totally irrelevant whether it was a shed, which they're not, but whether it was a shed or a mansion. It's all about how much money did you make, at the time that you get yourself, when you use your exit strategy. How much did you make? How much did you start with? What did you end with? And that's all that counts. But we use, really nice properties, very nice finishings. We go above and beyond. I didn't even go into our finishings and some of the extras we put in the homes to make it so people do want to move in for 3 years and do want to own these homes. There's a lot of different things that we do, and that's a whole other. I mean, that's a whole other webinar into itself. But I invite anybody who's interested in this offer, talk to either yourself or me, and let me know that Cal sent you, and I can go into great detail on how we built the system, why it works, how it works, what I used to do wrong that I had to change to get to this point. I'm happy to share everything I've done. I love what I do, and I love to teach, and I love to help other people. So I'm always here for people that want to learn.
All right. So the best way for people to contact you would probably be through your website, Mike?
Probably their best way is, why don't they just call me toll free at 1-888-265-0662. That's 1-888-265-0662. And yeah, we can have a strategy session and and see if this is right for you, because it's not right for everybody, because I'm not buying low-end homes. So you're not going to get homes for $1 here. I have other ways if you want very inexpensive properties where you can do it safely and in good markets, not Detroit. I hate to pick on Detroit, but I will. And so I do have other programs for other people, but if we do a strategy session, I can let you know if this is the right strategy to get you to where you want to get you to your goals.
All right. And I'll also throw a link underneath this video to your website as well, so people can look up what you've got there.
Yeah, so, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, I won't keep you any longer. We've been running on. I knew that would happen because
I can keep going all day. I love this stuff.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Mike, for coming in. I know you're busy in LA, but I really appreciate your time talking to us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Cal.
All right. Thank you.